Next step is the city of Bukhara, also located on the Silk Road and another World Heritage Site. The roughly 450 kilometers from Khiva to Bukhara takes about 7 hours in a bus, a journey that would have taken up to 3 weeks in the days of the caravans. At start, the road emerges into an oasis farmland landscape in the banks of the great Amu Darya River. There, the bad conditions of the road do not allow to progress much, and the first stop is usually before hitting the desert. A curiosity that arises is, why does everyone drives a Chevrolet in Uzbekistan? After independence from Soviet Union, Chevrolet have been produced under a joint venture, 75% of which was controlled by the Uzbek government. In a protectionist measure, the government then slapped prohibitive import duties on all imported cars, making it impossible for citizens to buy another brand. Nowadays, the ongoing economic liberalization is altering this dynamic. And while Chevrolets are still a ubiquitous sight on Uzbekistan's roads, there is now a growing variety. In some regions, water is still taken for granted, despite the proximity of what was one of the world's worst environmental disasters, the desiccation of the Aral Sea. And while the sea is gone for good, the Amu Darya River is now dying too, stunting crops and impacting millions of people in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. At about 98 km after Khiva, the single-lane road meets the A380 highway, the highest grade highway in Uzbekistan and a major trade route in Central Asia. For the next few hours, the highway runs into the barren landscape of the Kizilkum Desert and becomes desolate and endless, with nothing else to see except the extensive construction work on the gas pipeline. As you enter the city of Bukhara, you find a bright, clean, flowery city. Along the wide avenues, you can see the extreme care that goes into decorating the green spaces with flowers of all colors, even when the harsh summer weather means that wilted flowers must be replaced every week. The historic center of Bukhara is more than 2,000 years old. It is the most complete example of a medieval city in Central Asia, with an urban fabric that has remained largely intact. As other cities of Central Asia that lie along the route of the Silk Road, Bukhara was a trading post and a rest stop for the great camel and mule trains from the Far East. Traders with silk, spices, carpets and other goods would stop at caravanserais, lodging and trading complexes where they could rest their pack animals and themselves before continuing across the desert. Bukhara is popular for its old town trading domes dating back to the 16th century. These are huge domes with steady stone vaults, which extinguished the summer heat and kept the warmth from the breath of the people inside in winter months. Even though several centuries have passed, 4 of the 5 dome-covered bazaars still remain as popular places to visit for locals and foreign visitors, and have therefore become an iconic image of Bukhara. Here you can buy famous Bukhara carpets, various handicrafts, ceramics, musical instruments, antiques and paintings, at least those that have survived modern times, and much more. Every historic monument in the city is still a venue for merchants, as the Abdul Aziz Khan Madrasa, also built in the 16th century and located in the vicinity of the trading domes. Unlike the other madrasas where the entrance usually leads directly to the courtyard, here, the entrance rests against a wall that curves around the curved galleries on both sides, along which market stalls use the space to sell their wares, and leading to the inner courtyard. As well as the large 16th century Kukuldash Madrasa, originally built to be a Silk Road caravanserai, where you can also meet the artisans carving into metal plates. This is one of the most common types of handcrafted work of Uzbek ethnic art, and, in the 19th century, Bukhara and Khiva masters of engraved and embossed copper art were very popular. Local schools were established, which differed with own style of ornamentation, form and design, as well as with an approach to emboss. But Bukhara metal carving is known for its traditional simplicity and rigorous design. Besides the once vast market complex, most of the city centre is an architectural preserve. The Kalyan minaret emerges from a building complex, which together with the Kalyan Mosque and the Miri Arab Madrasa forms the Islamic monumental complex, Poe Kalyan. The title Poe Kalyan, which means at the foot of the great, is derived from its place at the foot of the minaret, the tapering mud brick tower which rises 45 meters above the city. Being the oldest construction of the complex, built in 1127, and the tallest minaret at that time, it also served as a watchtower and a guide to approaching caravans on the Silk Route. The Poe Kalyan Mosque, which was completed by the 1530s, is the earliest of the major Shaibanid monuments of Bukhara and a symbol of the city's rising status in the 16th century. It encloses a large inner courtyard surrounded by an arched gallery covered with a roof consisting of 288 saucer domes, only visible from above. Having been used as a warehouse during the Soviet period, the Kalyan Mosque reopened to worshippers in 1991 and continues to be a place of prayer, albeit only part of the building is used for this purpose. Directly across the inner courtyard of the Kalyan Mosque stands the Mir-e-Arab Madrasa. Constructed in 1535, it is considered one of the most important educational establishments in the Islamic world, which has continued to serve its original function up until the modern day, making it the only madrasa in Central Asia with such a long-standing use. Northwest the Poe Kalyan complex is the Ark, built between the 5th and 6th centuries to be a fortress. The square lying at the fall of the Ark is the Registan. Until the 13th century, administrative buildings and palaces were located here, and then it was surrounded by markets. Sir Alexander Burns, a Scottish explorer of the 19th century, wrote, "A stranger has only to seat himself on a bench in the Registan to know the Uzbeks and the people of Bukhara." It was thus natural that the Soviets should choose this medieval bastion as the location to sweep away the old and usher in the new. The only historic structure that survived was the Bolo House Mosque, where the Emir Shah Murad himself performed prayers every Friday along with thousands of Muslims, as to prove to the inhabitants that he was an ordinary person. The mosque is divided into two parts. The Winter Mosque, dating back from 1718, was the official place of worship of the last emirs, and the Summer Mosque with its brightly painted Ivan porch, supported by 20 columns of walnut, elm and poplar, an excellent demonstration of Bukharan craftsmanship dating back from 1917. Since then, the mosque has been reopened and is still in use by the general public for worship. but also the surroundings of Bukhara amaze with the number of ancient settlements. 5 kilometers to the west from Bukhara, there is one of the most unusual landmarks, the Chorbaka necropolis, also called the City of the Dead. The place is a memorial complex built over the burial place of Abu Bakr Sa'id, who died in the year 970 AD, and who was one of the 4 of Abu Bakr's descendants of Muhammad. The complex we see today was established in 1559 and includes the necropolis of family tombs and courtyards enclosed with walls. In the following centuries, it became an important place for prayers and ceremonies. Additional buildings were constructed, and the complex was expanded to include adjacent areas. From the 19th century, it gradually lost its importance, and, in the Soviet era, it was forbidden to use it as a religious site. Today, it is considered an important place of pilgrimage for Uzbek Muslims, who visit it before heading to Mecca. Here you will not see a stream of tourists or many pilgrims. The necropolis is quiet, and only the sound of loose doors under the locks breaks the silence. As per Islamic tradition, the graves and tombs are quite simple in design, often with no writing on them whatsoever. Some, however, stood out, either due to the material of the stone and/or because of the writing on the tomb itself. Time has not spared the terracotta necropolis, but even restored, raised from the ruins, it makes an impression. Silent, austere, and lofty City of the Dead Kings, with its many alleys, tombs, doors, and passages. This is a real place for meditation. In the heat of summer, we found a very quiet and peaceful atmosphere. An imam calls visitors to join him in a shady spot. He then brings out dozens of noisy, cooing pigeons and places them on our and his heads and arms, making the joy of tourists. It is not clear if there is any special meaning in this act, though doves and the pigeon family in general are believed to have assisted the final prophet of Islam, Muhammad, in distracting his pursuers outside the cave of Thawa in the Great Hijra. The 12-kilometer northeast of Bukhara, in the village of Kasri Orifon, is one of Sufism's more important shrines, the Bahauddin Naqshbandi complex. Naqshbandi was an advocate of simplicity and rejected reverent piety. He died in 1389 and was buried in his birthplace where, over time, an entire architectural complex was built around his tomb, consisting of a holy grave, a madrasa, a shelter for pilgrims, 2 mosques, and a graveyard. The complex becomes a holy place and a pilgrimage site for people all over the world. The mausoleum is built and decorated in the Eastern architectural tradition, with carved wooden screens on ceiling with unique Islamic patterns. Cleanliness and purification are the cornerstone of Islam, as it is enshrined in the books of Hadith. Apart from body, Muslims cannot offer their prayers with unclean clothes or using dirty premises. They are asked to use clean water and keep it safe from impurities and pollution. All forms of cleaning and caring for the masjid are not insignificant acts, as they are meritorious deeds which hold great rewards. A person who cleans the masjid to the mere extent of removing a speck of dirt from it will be rewarded for this act. The shrine itself is steeped in superstition, and believers from different Muslim countries come here to ask for the fulfillment of wishes and healing. During the Soviet period, the shrine was in a state of desolation. But since independence of Uzbekistan, major restoration work has been carried out, and currently it is one of Bukhara's most beautiful architectural sites. It welcomes pilgrims and guests alike with a unique atmosphere of serenity and seclusion. But the most interesting part of traveling is the people we meet along the way. People who open themselves, their cultures, and their lifestyles so we can continually broaden our horizons and knowledge about the world we share. It is said that Uzbeks have inherited rules of hospitality from the indigenous people many centuries ago, in the years of the Great Patriotic War, when Central Asian families took unfamiliar people, just those who needed help, and shared with them bread. These rules have preserved almost intact in modern life. And the moment we ask someone for a photo, the interaction no longer becomes about what we want, and becomes about what they are willing to give you of themselves, all through gestures with no common language spoken. Although some Uzbeks had considerable contact with Russians during the Soviet period, few have experience with individuals from the West. Nonetheless, they are thrilled to meet individuals who wish to learn about and appreciate their rich culture. Here, among the pilgrims and visitors, we see the irreplaceable value that family has for the people of Uzbekistan. Despite some traditional characteristics of the Uzbek family, which disappeared during the Soviet era, have been partially restored after independence, Uzbeks usually live in large families consisting of several generations. Respect for elders is a core value, and children are taught to show deference to their parents and grandparents.
When you first arrive in Bukhara, you feel like entering into a magical jewel box with an ancient mechanism. But when we leave, it is the culture, greatness and friendliness of a multinational people that remains in the retina of our memory. Nestled in the heart of Uzbekistan, the ancient city of Bukhara feels like stepping into a museum, where every corner you turn shows you tales of the past. The intellectual vibrancy of the past continues to inspire and influence scholars and students of Islamic knowledge worldwide. Bukhara's significance as a center for the preservation and dissemination of Islamic knowledge cannot be overstated. As a crucial trading hub along the Silk Road, Bukhara's rich history is reflected in its artisanal crafts. Each of these iconic crafts is a testament to the city's rich heritage and the amazing skill of its artisans. Today, modern craftsmen and masters honor these traditions of decorative and applied art, whilst developing new ideas and perfecting their techniques. Their works showcase a variety of artistic forms, a wealth of creative imagination, and technical skills passed down from generation to generation. Miniature painting is a revered art form that has flourished for centuries, deeply rooted in Persian traditions. These intricate artworks, often created on small canvases, capture historical events, literary scenes, and everyday life with detail and vibrant colors. Artists use fine brushes and natural pigments to produce delicate, highly detailed scenes. Each miniature painting not only reflects Bukhara's rich cultural heritage, but also showcases the artist's skill and imaginative storytelling. Although there is scholarly disagreement about where chess originated, it is certain that the game spread along the Great Silk Road. Caravanserais provided an ideal setting for merchants to play and wager on chess. The impact of Soviet rule on the cultural identity of Uzbekistan is a complex phenomenon that continues to shape the country's cultural landscape. Acknowledging and understanding these influences helps us appreciate the resilience and richness of Uzbekistan's cultural heritage and its ongoing evolution.